Hey everybody, I'm here to introduce Karlo. Karlo, I met him about 3 years ago. He took a class I was teaching, and we said, hey, why don't you come to a con? And so he came and he showed up at Outer Zone. If anybody knows what Outer Zone is, you guys know, right? Yeah. And as soon as he got there, we said, hey, we've got work that needs to be done. We got to set up, move these chairs, do all this stuff. And then he ends up sitting there the entire day working at Outer Zone. And eventually, he figured out that the only way he could get out of working at the con is to do a talk. So that's why he's here doing a talk, so he can get out of having to shuffle around and do everything. So everybody listen to Karlo in his forensic incident response talk.
Check. 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 You're good. All right. Should I sing a ditty? No?
Yeah, you're doing good now.
Dirty Limericks?
Sing Green Onion.
Green Onion. All right, so everyone can hear me? Yes? We're good? People in the back? Thanks, Scott. Yeah, I was actually going to say, I was waiting for SkyDog to come back in. I wanted to thank him for building the world's tallest podium. You know, nothing adds to the speaker's nerves more than having to hide behind a monitor and feel that much shorter. I'm really going to have to thank him for that. I appreciate it. So, all right. Let's start with what I like to call the first of many slides in a presentation that are the obligatory slides. And this is the obligatory, who the hell is this that is talking slide. I'm going to do my best not to read the slides to you because I'm pretty sure most of you in this room are literate. It's just a little thing I like to call. Well, it's not that I need to be literate so much as the audience. Come on now, really? All right. So I'm entering my 6th year doing incident response for a federal agency. I cannot put the name of my federal agency in my slide deck because if I did, I would have to send it to their PR department, which last time I checked had a 9-month backlog. So I can't tell you who I work for in the slide. But if you flew here, I promise you that my customer provided you a helping hand. All right, so who's this really for? All right, well, at the end of the day, this is for anybody that's ever had to deal with a compromised Windows system. Microsoft and their operating system platforms are here to stay, and it is always beneficial to learn to work smarter and not harder in trying to support them. All right, buzzword time. It's innovation. Everybody loves this word. So just the word itself conjures images of possibility, of as yet undiscovered solutions that will make our jobs easier and our lives much more fulfilling. The idea of innovation is supposed to excite people. All right? I always used to think of the Jetsons anytime I used to think of the word innovation. Unfortunately, marketing people have done a really good job of slaughtering this word and just driving it down your throat like a Lady Gaga song. Ah, crap, it's another guy talking about buzzwords and innovation. All right, so I don't want you to pull out your buzzword bingo cards just yet. I promise you I'm not going to sit here and just yell ridiculousnesses at you. There is a very technical piece to this presentation, if I can keep my paperwork on my podium, hand-built by SkyDog, who, by the way, is like 7 feet tall. All right, flashy slide to catch audience's attention. So, story time. A few years ago, I had the opportunity to take 3 weeks of my life away from my job and attend probably one of the best hacker training classes I've ever taken, taught by one Mutz Matty Aharoni. At least half of you probably know who that is. Very heavily involved in the development of Backtrack, offensivesecurity.org. It was in his class that I discovered that he doesn't actually own the domain offensivesecurity.org with one F. And, well, I do now. That's another story. So I can personally attest to the amazing amounts of information that one can learn at one of Mutz's classes. And while the tools and the scripts that he demonstrated were valuable in their own right, I think the most valuable lesson in taking a class from somebody like Mutz is to spend some time with the individual and getting a good understanding of how an individual like Mutz in his field approaches an attack, how he thinks, his methodology. Penetration testing, tools, evasion, all of these things are an ever-evolving game of cat and mouse, but the mindset never changes. I think Sun Tzu put it best in The Art of War that if you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the results of 100 battles. All right, so there I am with a bunch of students. Tammy was in that class. She's over in the back. And Mutz is teaching the class. I had Chris Hadnagy, a.k.a. Logan, as his co-teacher. People in the student body are mostly incident responders, system administrators, people who were fortunate enough to get somebody to pay the ridiculous amounts of money, totally worth it, for the class, and be there for as long as we were. He starts demonstrating some of his tools. He's firing up backtrack. We've got VMs running. It's all very impressive. And as he's trying to teach us exactly how quickly it is that he can compromise certain Windows systems based on the latest exploit that was out at that time, the room falls silent as that reverse shell comes tunneling back to his desktop. Somebody raises their hand and they ask the inevitable question, so how do you detect and defend against this, right? Does anybody know what he said? Tammy, do you remember what he said?
He says, I don't know, I just break in.
That's right. He's like, that's not my job. My job is to get in. Your job is to stop me. You have to think of 10,000 possible ways for me to get in and proactively secure them. I only need to find the one that you forgot about. And I think that's probably the best way to describe Mutz penetration testing in a nutshell in terms of what kind of mindset you really need to approach going into a job like that. I strongly urge you to consider hiring at least one person in your enterprise, in your security team, or in your company that has this kind of mindset. I promise that however much you pay this individual, male or female, will be worth every penny, and it will, in the end, glean you a hell of a lot more protection in your enterprise than any overpriced IDS, NMS, patch management solution, log aggregator, SEM, et cetera, et cetera. There's that buzzword again. All right, so this is all very interesting. It's a very nice story. Everybody loves story time, right? But what does this have to do with innovation? And what does it have to do with forensics and incident response? All right, so the first question, what does this mean in terms of innovation? The whole point of my presentation is really that I want to show you that innovation doesn't always have to mean that you have to take out your big boy checkbook. It doesn't always have to mean that you have to buy a product that's worth millions of dollars to solve a problem that you've had in-house for many years. All right? Everybody here has probably worked at least one place where they bought $10,000, $100,000 solution. Everybody was super excited to bring it in. Vendor came. You probably got a T-shirt or a mouse pad. They came and they installed the solution. It's in the rack. It's all impressive. Has business-like lights on the front. And then the vendor left. Did anybody actually configure it? No, but it looks good, right? Do you have an IDS? Absolutely. Do you have a firewall? We certainly do. It's right there. I can point at it. Is it configured? No. I paid the vendor a lot of money to install this thing, right? It's like the old, why do I need to pay for gasoline? I just paid 30 grand for a car. So, obviously, innovation in a down economy can't mean spending more money. Everybody's trying to tighten their belts. Innovation in this instance can mean taking a fresh look at technology that you already probably have in-house. You're probably already running antivirus. Do you know every single feature that you can squeeze out of your antivirus solution? You probably don't. I can tell you that at other enterprises where I've worked, they were amazed that their antivirus solution actually logged every single file that was executed on their workstation. They were looking at a massive multi-million-dollar deployment of a technology that I will not name that would do just that for them. Now, that technology also did 100 other really awesome things. This was actually just a very minute feature of this technology. But this is what they wanted. And they were getting ready to cut a really, really big check until I said, hey, your antivirus already does this. You just need to enable enhanced logging. Maybe purchase a couple more terabytes of SAN space, and you can pump this into your Windows management system today. Most people that spend money on these high-priced vendors or vendors that they've already brought in-house, typically the sales guy or woman negotiates a contract with them, and they say, well, we're going to sell you the solution, and I'm going to cut you a deal. This is when you know they're lying and trying to screw you. I'm going to cut you a deal on professional services, right? The two-word, dirty word, professional services. And I'm going to give you, 20 hours for a low, low rate of $400 an hour or whatever it is. And they, of course, pay for it, and then it goes unused. Well, go back to your enterprise. Find out what you're running. Ask the people that cut the check. Did we get professional services with this solution? Can I give them a call? Can I spend some time having them come down here, walking me through every single feature that they have in their product that maybe I don't have configured in my enterprise? Maybe I might be able to strengthen the security posture of my enterprise without spending a single dime, or by spending money that I've basically already spent last year. Anybody impressed yet? You want to hear the rest? No? Okay. So that's kind of the philosophy that I want to teach you guys. The tools that I want to show you are all free. They're either already built into your Windows operating system. I'm going to use Windows XP as my demo because, well, it's easy to set up. A lot of people are still running it, and it runs very cleanly in a VM. Some of these tools have been used for a really long time by Windows system administrators, and I've just basically repurposed them for the purpose of incident response and forensics. All right, so here's what we got. Incident response via the command line. Why should we do it, right? Everybody loves a graphical user interface. Well, there's a lot of really good reasons to do it. It's really fast, for one. Two, I'm going to have to vamp because these slides are not in my presentation. Presentation fail. That's OK. We'll move on. So I don't really hate vendors. I know some people ask me after my talk, like, dude, you really came down on vendors. I actually had to stop mentioning people that I've supported in the past. I don't hate vendors. I've seen a lot of really good solutions. I've attended a lot of good vendor conferences. I love swag. Anybody that's ever seen me at a conference can attest to the fact that I've walked out with like 17 T-shirts just from one vendor alone when they're not looking. But I don't think you should always spend money to fix a problem that you have. Computers are so complicated. People spend money on all these products. They don't even know what they do. Don't always pick up the phone and try to find somebody to take your money. Spend a little time talking to the people that are probably already frustrated that you have these problems. This is my real pet peeve. Don't bring in a consultant. The other C word in our industry, don't bring in a consultant. Because you know what a consultant does? Has anybody ever been a consultant? I mean, I've been a consultant. You know what you do when you're a consultant? You walk in and you find the most disgruntled looking people that you can find, and you say, look, I will buy you lunch if you have an hour to tell me everything you hate about this company and why they can't do things right. And then you go back to your hotel room and you type up everything they said in manager speak. And then you come back and you sit in front of the people that are cutting the big check and you're like, I'm here to tell you everything that's wrong in your enterprise. And I use a pie graph and a stoplight chart and a Gantt chart and all these other things. And they sit back and they're like, holy crap, this guy's amazing. How did he know all this stuff about us? Well, because I listen to the same guy that you've been shutting the door on all of this time. That really drives me up the wall. Don't be that company. Don't be that guy. Otherwise, I'm going to have to charge you a lot of money to come in and tell you everything that he's been trying to tell you for months. All right, back to the slide. All right, so one of the other great things about trying to use tools that are built into the Windows command line is that if you're brought into a scenario where, say, for example, you're not allowed to bring in your super pimped out laptop with all your Uber Haxer tools, you're still going to be able to do some stuff. You know, if this doesn't really sound all that exciting to you, please understand that I could have just as easily titled this presentation, "So you've got a shell in Windows and you don't have an interpreter. Now what?" Right? Nobody wants to admit that they're wholly dependent on Meterpreter to do all the stuff that they do. But you can do a lot of really neat stuff if you just know what commands are already built into Windows. I've been fortunate to grow up in an environment with a Unix background, so I'm not afraid of the command line. A lot of people growing up these days see the DOS box as kind of like a window in time. Like, you know, oh, it's a black box with white letters, and if I type things, things will break, and I'm scared, and you probably can't do anything in there anyway that's, you know, worth doing. Well, it's not entirely true. All right, so what's the best scenario to approach this? Well, here's the other slide that I like to call the necessary slide, right? What are the prerequisites to make the demo that I'm about to show you work in your environment? Well, a Windows network, for one, is good. Any environment that's set up with a Active Directory domain controller and you have your users authenticating to that domain is the ideal setup. Obviously, you're going to need access over NetBIOS, and the remote registry service needs to be enabled. This is one of those times where I actually am going to read you the slide, but I promise it won't be very often. Now, government-empowered incident responders. That's a big bullet, and it's there last, but by no means the most unimportant. I had the opportunity to work at a place where the CEO of the company came down to our security operations center and said, "Look, we get paid a lot of money to do incident response for these clients. These clients have very high visibility in the public eye. If you have a problem, if you have an incident, at the time you declare a security incident, you might as well put my hat on. If there's somebody in this company that is not helping you with your incident, you let them know that I said you are their boss for the duration of this incident. You stand up that conference bridge. You get whoever you need on the phone. I'm empowering you to tell people that you're in charge." Wow. What a huge difference that one simple thing made. Now, it was very difficult, I'm sure, for him to make that statement, and I guarantee you there were a couple of times when I called some people at 3 in the morning, they were really unhappy to hear from me. But I knew, come hell or high water, so long as I was right in calling that a security incident, so long as I checked everything, even if that person turned around and bitched to my boss's boss's boss, that person's boss would turn around and be like, "Yeah, sorry, he was right. Suck it up." All right, so here's what we're going to be looking at in terms of Windows command line tools. Run as grants the ability to user to command anything using an alternate user. So if your enterprise is configured to run, say, not necessarily the administrator, but you have a separate account with specific access rights that you have granted to do administrative type functions, you can now issue a command using that username inside your more restricted user shell. WMIC. All right. Originally, this was created to actually do system administration and push out patches. It's based, it's an object-oriented interface. It didn't exist prior to Windows 2000, and I'm certainly very glad that it does now. It's not very well documented. Actually found things on the internet that said it doesn't even come in Windows 7, which is a lie. It's very much alive and well in Windows 7, and it works great. Don't let them fool you. PS tools. How many people have heard of PS tools before? Right? Is it awesome? Right? Yeah, I mean, it's like scripting gold. A book actually just came out. Russ Rosinovich, one of the lead developers for PS tools, just put out a book. I have it ordered. We're only going to cover a couple of the commands. There's all kinds of awesomeness that you can do with it, but I could actually spend an entire day talking about it. These are the ones that I actually use the most often. Reg, which is one that a lot of people don't know about, built into Windows and gives you direct command line access to the Windows registry. Forensic artifacts. Interesting stuff. And we're going to cover exactly how to use it. That's very cool. System info is neat. Gives you a lot of information about your operating system. And I'm going to show you guys how that looks like, what that looks like as well. We're going to do a little scenario. All right. Power is nothing without control. So how are we going to run all of these commands? Everybody here uses their domain administrative account, if they've ever had one, to log in on a daily basis, right? You check email with it. You check your Facebook with it, right? No? Right, but you hate logging out and logging back in every single time, right? It's a pain in the ass. Okay. So enter our admin shell. We're going to use run as. We're going to fire up a little admin shell. And we're going to use this command down here at the bottom. If you're a Unix guy, the easiest way to explain this is the closest you'll ever come to sudo for Windows. And you can open up yourself a little command line shell using your administrative account. I'm not going to walk you through how to make a shortcut in Windows. I think you guys probably have got that pretty well handled, but I have given this presentation to other places where I did actually have to do that. So you enter in your fancy command, put in your name of your domain, your admin username, path to your command interpreter. I actually like to have my PS Tools folder on my desktop, and I map my administrative shell shortcut to open directly into my PS Tools folder. That eliminates the step where I have to open it. It drops me into like C Windows System 32, and then I have to like CD out and back in and try to find everything. And then I just default drop everything in my PS Tools folder. Dun-dun, admin shell. Oh, come on, it's a little funny. All right, so that's what it looks like. And this is how I configure it. You can configure the colors you want. I like the black background and the green text. Reminds me of the old school green screen monochrome terminals. And somebody clapping? That was funny. I also think it gives it a little bit more of a matrixy look, which might be a little dorky. But I guarantee you that if you're looking at this, you know that this isn't your regular command shell. And the big title also says that. I do not recommend that you title it things like total pwnage or pwnage shell. I discovered that there's certain IDS systems in the enterprise that will actually detect certain things like that, and they won't let me run my script. That was a little embarrassing. All right, so here's a scenario that we're going to cover. All right, we're an incident responder in a fairly large enterprise, and your user network is based on DHCP. You have Active Directory because otherwise this whole presentation wouldn't work. And we're going to do a multiple component incident. We're going to do the one that I'm sure you've never heard of, where the person brings in their USB device from home, decides they're going to plug it into their work computer. They've previously been installing like the coupon printer and have gotten some little extra goodies from the adware that it got served, and now their USB device has got a nice little extra payload on them. Not that Iron Geek would know anything about USB payloads or anything like that, not at all. All right, and in this instance, it's actually detected by AV, but only partially remediated, which basically means AV knew enough to know, maybe through a heuristic signature, that there's something wrong, something's being executed that shouldn't be, but it doesn't actually have a signature-based detection and therefore is not going to be able to remediate it. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to run through our commands, and I'm going to switch over to VM here in just a second. But this is kind of the steps we're going to take. All right, we're going to figure out who the user is. We're going to validate that. We're going to get some information related to their USB device. It always helps when you call somebody to say, hey, look, we just got an alert from your workstation, and we see that you just plugged in a Kingston thumb drive to your machine. And on that thumb drive, you've got a virus. It's a lot more difficult for them to pull the, no, it wasn't me, I'm a VIP in this company, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. If you don't hang up, you're going to lose your job. Everybody knows that everybody's created equal, but in a company environment or corporate environment, some people are more equal than others. It's 1984 rules all over again. We're going to identify the malicious process. We're going to issue some commands to try to give us some more information. We're going to terminate that process. We're going to rerun AV because it's policy. I personally don't think that rerunning the same antivirus product that was previously unable to remediate what you just detected was a good idea. For some reason, though, this is actually very prevalent. It's a lot like the 8-character password. People want you to rerun their product, Scan it again. Okay, maybe if I detected this a month ago, And there's been new defs rolled out since then. That might make sense, but I don't think 2 hours is going to make a big difference. But we're going to rerun the scan. And then I'm going to show you probably one of the neatest tricks of all, which is we're going to isolate that device from the network. All right. First thing you do when you run an incident, obviously involving a user, is you need to know who that user is. All right? The username may be the one and only thing that you know, and depending on who it is, say the CEO of the company or say the security guard at the front, who's there because it's a 24/7 center and is bored and decided to move his jack from the restricted network over to the corporate network that's sitting right at his desk and start surfing Facebook. Obviously it matters. You need to find out who it is. Boop. That was nice. How did I do that? Magic. All right. So by now, most people have a zero tolerance towards USB devices, right? But that really doesn't stop anybody. I mean, somebody was asking earlier about that virus that infected the drones. That was carried over in a USB device. And people are going to do it anyway. They're lazy. They want to work from home. They want to take their stuff with them. Laptops are heavy. They don't want to carry them on the bus and the metro, and they get kicked around. Yeah, they're going to do it anyway. All right. A little more detailed information is exactly what we're going to do. We're going to rescan it. All right. So why isolate it from the network? Now, there's a lot of solutions out there that will actually do this for you for several tens of hundreds of thousands of dollars. They're automated, and they work really well. They'll detect something that's going on maliciously in your network. It'll automatically grab it. It will isolate them to a separate VLAN. It might re-DHCP their lease and put them in an isolated network. And maybe you've got a built-in honeynet, and it's going to do all kinds of fanciness for you. And you probably paid a good amount of money for it. And we're going to do the reimage system validation, really is what it is. It's not so much that we're going to reimage it remotely, but we need to verify that when you call that field tech that's 4 states away, that was responsible for, used to be responsible for 1 site, now he's responsible for 8 sites because they had downsizing and they figured, why hire 8 people when 1 person can do the job of 8, right? Who does only 1 person's job, right? Nobody. Everybody has like 5 jobs where they work. Field techs, of course, never lie. They will never just call and say, oh, yeah, I went ahead and reimaged that system. Don't worry about it. Go ahead and close that ticket. Whatever. All right. What? Right. All right. Enough slides. Let's see some action. Da-da, Windows XP, everybody's favorite operating system. That's good. Get a picture of me getting drunk on stage. That'll look really good for the execs back home. Thanks. All right. I'll show you guys this real quick. I have a handy-dandy spreadsheet. And I just want to do a little quick comparison in terms of, all these solutions that are here. Like you could get a DLP solution, for example here, to do a USB device history, or you could issue 1 command. I'm not saying DLP is a bad idea. I'm just saying if all you're buying it for is to find out what was connected to your USB port, that you're probably better served just issuing this command for free. I have 20 copies of said spreadsheet. No, you don't get one, Charles. And if you guys come up to me, it's first come, first serve. You guys are welcome to this. For some reason, the printer printed a little funky character at the start of these, but you're probably smart enough to know that a question mark with a square box surrounding it is just a bizarre wingding of my ancient Epson printer, and not some bizarre keystroke like Alt Option with like the O and the slash and the U with the 2 dots. And no, it's none of that. It's just something weird. So when I'm done, feel free to rush the stage. All right, so we're going to go through some of these and see what they look like. Step 1. All right, here we go. Oh, one more thing about the spreadsheet. I don't know what it is with Excel. It either hates me or it has a self-loathing complex. I haven't figured out which. It's probably a little bit of both. For some reason, when you cut and paste this out of Excel and into your command line, it will change the quotes on you. And it won't change them in a way that is readily visible. They will look like regular quotes, but they're actually these like evil zombie quotes that will prevent your command from executing in the command line, and you will stare at it, and then you'll curse the guy that was that presentation that gave you the spreadsheet, and you'll be like, damn it, this command doesn't work at all. I got gypped. I could have been like at dinner an hour ago. No, it works. You literally just need to cut and paste these into Notepad and then cut and paste them back into your command line. I swear I don't know why. I've been trying to fix this for months, and I haven't figured it out. It's just some freakness about the quotes in Excel.
It's not time-consuming.
Yeah, and maybe it's the font, you're right, or maybe it's this version of Office. Yeah, whatever. Just, caveat emptor. And I did actually put that note in the bottom of my spreadsheet here because it happened to me so often. Right there, Excel, bad. So you don't have to remember it if you don't want to. All right, so who's logged on, right? Here's my administrative shell. Actually made my alias, so I'm going to just go ahead. I don't have a full Windows domain environment set up, so I'm just going to do all these locally, but they work the same. So we're going to just pretend for the sake of pretending. By the way, you could also do this if you were lazy and only wanted to memorize one set of commands. Like if you only wanted to do the local commands, you could actually you could give yourself an administrative remote shell, or a reverse shell, basically, from any box in your enterprise using this command. And then you don't need to do the / host for every command you issue, because it now will just basically pipe you back a local shell from that remote machine using your administrative credentials, and you can now execute anything you want, and it will use that remote machine's processor. And if you're doing something really intensive, like trying to crush through the entire C drive's worth of files, trying to find a single file, it's a lot better to do it remotely than it is locally. I'll show you that command too. But all right, so PS logged on, simple, tells a story. Who is logged onto my system? This being the VMware that it is, I've got, this is my workgroup name, my domain name, and then default is my username. But it just as easily work in your enterprise. And it works really well. I hate to use the phrase, astound management and amaze your friends, but sometimes it's really funny when you walk into a place and I was like, well, who's logged into that machine? Well, I don't know. Boom, there you go, answer. I don't know. All right. Here's another great one. From the command line, you can actually query your event log. So if you have a machine that gets used a lot by users and you have a finite time frame, you don't have to necessarily fire up a machine, and you don't have to go into the event viewer, and you don't have to try and map that user's event history remotely across the LAN. God forbid you have a remote site that's using a 64K ISDN line. Sort of God, that happened to me. And you have to pull an entire 20 meg log file. Forget about it. You can use WMIC. This being a VM, I didn't actually have anything in my security event log, so I went ahead and just pulled some NTP events. And if you were wondering when was the last time a workstation synced with NTP, you could issue this command and find that out. Or you could do event code 540 and 529, which are log on, log off events, which is actually the one that I typically execute on a machine, because it'll give me every single user and the timestamp as to when an individual logged in and logged out of that machine, which makes it a lot easier to correlate against when a supposed security incident happened. All right. So we have our user, and they plugged in a USB device, right? We want to find out exactly what was up with that. I'll use this one because it's wider. And I'm going to have to widen it a little more. The Windows registry stores a history of USB devices that are attached to it in this registry key, HKey local machine system current control set enum USB store. Every single device that you plug into a machine has a unique identifier, very similar to a MAC address on a network. every single USB device vendor is supposed to adhere to this standard, but they don't always, unlike MAC addresses, which are necessary because otherwise ARP won't work. But most high-dollar vendors, not the vendors like, say, at the checkout of Micro Center or Fry's where they try to sell you like a 16-gig thumb drive for like $4. Those don't even have this in identifier. It'll be like a bunch of zeros or just random characters. But I plugged in an external Toshiba USB 3 hard drive to my VM before I did this presentation. And sure enough, it showed up right there. So automatically now, if you have an incident where somebody plugged in a USB device and you don't know, is it a thumb drive, is it an external drive, is it a CD-ROM burner where they're trying to burn stuff and get it out, exfiltrate, corporate data, you can get a lot of information from this one registry key. All right. Does anybody remember the bowling gnomes virus going around? It's a little flash-based game. You could like throw the bowling ball, and then they came out with like a holiday version. All right, so I just went ahead and renamed calc on my desktop to like greeting card exe because everybody knows that's always malicious, always. Oh, wrong one. What I want to do now is I actually want to pull a list of processes from that machine. And what is unique pulling it this way versus, say, doing it using just a task manager. Ah, come on. Don't be like that. Really?
Right click page. Yeah, right click at the top.
You're right. Damn the bourbon. All right. What I really like about this command is right here. It actually tells me the fully qualified path on my workstation as to where that particular executable is located. So if I have 16, service host exes running on that workstation, and I think one of them is malicious, it will pull them all up, and you can then go through and say, I don't think that's the default path for service host exe. I don't think it should be on the user's desktop set to invisible. In this instance, we pulled up this workstation. It was running greetingcard.exe. I wanted to know where the executable is located. Boom, one line command. There it is. All right, so now I have located the malicious process. Put this up here. I want to get rid of it. Come on now. There we go. I'm not saying this works for antivirus because I would never tell you how to turn off an antivirus solution because you can do that in Meterpreter. But if you don't have Meterpreter, I suggest something like this because it works real well for any process because remember, you have an administrative shell. So far, we've done what? We figured out who's logged on. We figured out what kind of external USB device they use to infect their workstation. We've located the infected or malicious process, and we have terminated it. If you were running, say, Symantec, I would recommend issuing a command like this to run your scan from the command line. We're not going to do that because I don't have Symantec installed on here, and nobody wants to sit around and wait for that scan to finish. So I want to show you probably the coolest part, mostly because that guy walked out and now he's going to miss it. I'm going to show you how to, for free, isolate your workstation on your network. And this, to me, was probably one of the coolest set of commands that I came across in trying to build this presentation. Let's say you have an administrative network where you have oh so wisely decided to create a restricted VLAN where you only have access to intranet resources. Why? Because users will call and scream bloody murder if they don't have access to their email, right? Oh my God, I can't get on email. I might as well just pack up and go home. God forbid you actually do your job. So what's the middle ground here? Well, the middle ground is that you have somebody who's fairly literate in computer security that has figured out what has infected this machine, that with a high degree of assurance, you as the incident responder have figured out how to neutralize that infection. And now you're going to take that system and you're going to place it in a restricted network so that that individual can still do their job, which is apparently sending and receiving email all day. And that will buy you time to be able to roll out remote hands or a field tech there to either boot it in safe mode and rerun a scan, or take the hard drive out and reimage it, or whatever it is that your policies and procedures call for you to do. And this is how we're going to do it. The first thing you need to do is get out your list of interfaces, right? WMIC NIC config list brief. And what this is going to show you is it's going to show you every single network interface that is configured on your workstation. So, for the purposes of this presentation, we're going to use, and the column that you want, by the way, is the rightmost one, which is why I tried to widen this as much as I could, and that's the index number. Please notice that currently our IP on this is your typical 192.168.1, and I just gave it a .10. This is important because you will be quizzed on it later. So now we know our index number. Now remember, this network was DHCP. So we have oh so wisely already had a pool of IP addresses that we can issue to users, and our VLANs in place and our routing tables that will only route this subnet of IPs internally. So with this command, I'm going to tell it, go ahead and take your index 1, your first interface, enable static of 1, 2, 3, 4, give you your subnet mask. Boom, return value equals 0. That means you succeeded. If you get a return value of anything else, even though it'll say method execution successful, like 70 or 40 or 80, it means it did not work. Ta-da, look at that. We went from 192.168 to 1.2.3.4. I think that's pretty cool, all right? But wait, there's more. You're also going to get one of those little plastic things that you stab into an orange and a set of Ginsu knives, right? What if you also decided to oh so wisely have some kind of honeynet configured? Maybe you have a specific DNS server in your enterprise that is feeding your NMS system, right? Let's say you have ArcSight or Splunk or Nagios or something like that to do log management, aggregation, and some kind of rule development. If you have a DNS server on your network that is just feeding devices from this subnet, then you can have a channel configured or a report that you can very quickly spit out that will show you every single domain that that workstation has tried to look up to make an external connection. Maybe this is how you're going to get your call outs. Maybe you think it was some kind of botnet and you want to know where it's calling out to. You've already put it in this restricted network, but you want to query all of the DNS queries out to your network. Notice my DNS servers are 8.8.8 and .8 and 9.9.9.9. Boom, return value equals 0. Ta-da, I have now successfully isolated this workstation to a restricted VLAN on my network, pointed it to a DNS server that I am logging for all external callouts. I'm generating reports on the hour. The user is still able to do his or her work. Remote hands has been notified, and nobody yelled at me that day. Come on, that's got to be worth something, right? Man, it's a tough room. Yeah, come on, yeah. What if I said I'd get you drunk?
Too late?
Oh, yeah, it probably is too late. All right, so. And that's just a slide showing you what I showed you when I first started, that you can actually execute basically a remote shell, just like you would an interpreter, to call back to your workstation and just run the commands locally. Thus concludeth my presentation on forensics and incident response. Clearly, I want to thank my company because they're going to be, paying the expense report for me to be here. If you guys happen to catch me in some other cons, here's the stuff I'm working on. PowerShell, obviously, because Windows 7 is everywhere now. I want to see what exactly can be done for IR using PowerShell. By the way, PowerShell doesn't have grep. I don't understand. I thought that would be the first thing that we put in there. So, hence the second bullet, which is how to use Cygwin, not only to parse large text files of relevant data, but also just to use the various commands in Cygwin to do instant response, because Cygwin is awesome. And then just more general IR kung fu. All right, my name's Karlo. I work for SC Solutions. If you want a copy of the presentation, here it is, or you can hit me up on Twitter @ViciousData. Because I don't have enough to do during the day, I also own my own data recovery company at night, Vicious Data Recovery, LLC. Thanks to Scott Moulton for teaching me everything I know about data recovery. And that's the show, folks. Enjoy your dinner. Damn this tall podium. All right, rush the stage time. Who wants a copy of this? I do. No, Charles, I'll mail it to you.